sermon illustration that I've been debating whether to use in this upcoming sermon. I debated whether to use it in this one. Should I just do it here on the air, or should I not? What do you think?
Go for it. I mean, if you're not going to...
Well, I don't know whether I'm going to use it or not, so, but we'll find out. We'll see how...
If it's good, we'll do both.
Well, we might.
Right.
Yeah, you can write in and say whether I should use it in the sermon this next week.
That's it.
When I was 16 years old, I wrecked my car within 6 weeks of getting my license.
No.
It was late on a evening. The roads were wet, and a friend and I were not necessarily racing, but kind of racing. He got ahead of me, and then I was behind him. We were on these country roads, and I was, kind of keeping up with him. Well, we came to a stoplight or stop sign. He turns and gets a little ahead of me, so I try to catch up with him on some S turns. Being a young driver on a wet road, I start fishtailing, overcorrect, boom, right into the side of a bank. Fortunately, I'm the only one in the car. Well, the car does. My feeling was that it did about a 360 degree spin and comes to rest 6 feet from a sheriff's car that had been coming in the opposite direction.
Oh no!
There's like this just deathly silence that I recall, and it felt like 5 minutes. But then his lights come on. He rolls down his window and he goes, "Are you okay?" And I rolled it, and I was like, "Yeah, I think so." He goes, "Good, because I'm not." He said, "I think I wet my pants." He said, "You scare me to death." So we pull over. And meantime, all my friends who are coming from the same event that are driving past, he must have been scared, because the next thing I know, there's 2 state troopers, 2 other sheriff's deputies. It looks like a drug bust is going down.
Ken's going down.
And so anyway, obviously I got a ticket for exceeding the safe speed limit. Fortunately, he goes, "I thought I saw another car that was moving kind of fast come past me." I go, "Did you?"
I don't know anything about that.
So I'm not going to ask you any further questions about that, because I don't want any. He said, "But you would agree that you were exceeding the safe speed limit." I said, "I think we could agree on that, or I wouldn't have had the accident." Well, I needed to get out of that ticket, obviously, as a new, and so I went to court. Not to fight it. My dad had a friend who was in the prosecutors. And they said, just go in and plead basically no contest. It's called prayer for judgment. It's like, basically, I did it. Please forgive me and give me another chance. So I go in, and this judge is not a nice man.
Oh, no.
I heard all the people in front of me, and I thought it was hilarious until it was my
turn. Yeah.
And so I get up front, and I had already talked to the prosecutor. They'd already agreed that they were going to accept, go along with it. So the judge said, "How do you plead, Mr. Wetmore?" I said, I'm asking for prayer for judgment." He looks down at me and goes, "What's that?" I was like, "Oh man, if you don't know, I don't know if I know."
Do I have to explain it to the judge?
Yeah, right. So like, I say, "Well, it's basically, I'm telling you I'm guilty, but I'm just asking you to have mercy on me." "How long have you been driving?" 6 weeks. "What kind of student are you?" "A little bit better than C." He goes, "You're not a very impressive, your argument is not very impressive to me." He looks over at the district attorney and says, "Well, what do you think?" And the district attorney says, "Well, sir, he's been very compliant. He's, this is first offense. First offense, he's been driving for 6 weeks." He said, "How many offenses could he rack up before this?" And the prosecutor grins and he goes, "Look," he goes, "we're okay with it." And the judge goes, "Oh." He looks over at the trooper who's there. He goes, "Surely you, who see all kinds of dumb mistakes and the results, you can't be okay with this." And the trooper said, "Look, the kid was respectful to me. I don't have a problem with it." And the judge's like, oh
man.
He goes, "You come sit here and I'll think about it." He had me sit right in front of his bench for an hour.
What?
For an hour. I sat there, and I didn't know. Just case after case, and I'm just sitting there. Finally, the man looks down and he goes, "I've decided to go ahead and grant your request. Go fill out your paperwork and be gone. And don't you ever get in trouble again." It was like that quick. Get out of here. I disliked that guy for years. But as I grew up, I realized what he'd done. Yeah. I was terrified. I never wanted to show up in his court again.
Yeah, no.
And what seemed like meanness was actually his kindness. He was trying to keep me alive.
Yeah.
And he did. It slowed me down. It did slow me down and made me a better driver somewhat. And so I think sometimes God's grace, which we'll be talking about in the next sermon, but God's grace is like that. It seems like it's harsh, but it's not. And it's not that God hasn't forgiven us. That judge I know that guy had already decided what he was going to do probably before he even asked the district attorney, he knew what he was going to do. And it wasn't like he hadn't already forgiven me, but he also wanted me to not make the same mistake again in a way that could kill myself or other people.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that God is that way, that sometimes the consequences aren't meant to punish us as much as they're meant to help us remember why it's not a good idea. And some of it's just a natural consequence. If you step off a cliff, it's not that gravity hates you. It's just
it likes
the
you
natural consequence of stepping off of a cliff.
It loves you.
Yeah,
it's bring me into your embrace. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that so much of what you just said was when we were in that situation, there's so much going on. There's fear. There's absolute dread that you have. This has gone to this level when it was just a little bit of fun. So I gotta go to court. Yeah. I got people on my side now. You're going to be the fly in the ointment. And we're in that situation, and you're trying to think. Your mind is thinking of all these different scenarios, and oh man, why didn't I just? I shouldn't have done. That was dumb. And now look what I got myself into. And your mind fights with with yourself about what you did and what's appropriate for maybe punishment, or I can't believe we're here. But I think at the end of it, like you said, when we find out later on down the road, we all have that point where we go, "Wow, God, through this situation, through the judge, through this." And I really did learn a lesson. I was bitter about it. I could have been a lot nicer about it. I could have talked about this guy a lot nicer to people. I could have done a lot of things better. And then the next time, I think we go into the next one a little bit smarter and go, all right, I really screwed up. And I hope that it doesn't turn into another one of these or another one of those. But I'm also really going to try to pick out the details where I can learn something. Yeah. And try not to double down on bad decision making.
Yeah, and I think the other part of it for us to think about too is there are times where the loving thing to do and the forgiving thing to do is to allow somebody to suffer the consequences of a decision that they've made. And it's not – and the question for me always when I'm in that situation is, am I doing this because it makes me feel good to see them suffer, or am I doing it because I think this is genuinely the best thing for them? And for those of us who have kids, that sometimes the worst thing on earth is to watch your child suffer the consequences of something that you could spare them from, but that they need to learn that lesson. And usually if I'm feeling good about them suffering, that's not a good sign. It's not a good sign. It's a sign that I probably haven't forgiven what I need to. On the other hand, consequences are a natural part of life, and they can be very important. And taking away the consequences from people is sometimes not at all the loving thing to do.
Yeah, no, for sure. And but that is hard as a parent. You think about it as a kid, you go, I will never do that to my kids. And then you're like, oh no, eat your words, mister.
Yeah.
Oh man.